My name is Rose Brooks. I'm 35 years old, and I live in the suburbs of Denver, Colorado, with my 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Last Christmas was the day everything finally broke. Before I tell you what happened, I want to thank you for staying with me. This isn't easy to share, but it's a story that needs to be told. I own a company specializing in solar energy systems. We design, install, and maintain panels for homes and small businesses. I started the company 8 years ago with nothing but savings, stubborn belief, and bruised hands from climbing rooftops myself. Today, I employ more than 20 people. The business is stable, profitable. It gives Lily and me a comfortable life. But in my parents' eyes, I'm still just the girl who climbs roofs. Whenever relatives ask about me, my parents change the subject. She installs panels, my father says dismissively, as if I wasted my education, as if success only counts when you wear a suit. Yet somehow, when money is needed, my phone is the first to ring. For 8 years, I sent money home. Sometimes they asked, sometimes I offered, always hoping it would finally earn respect. It never did. Everything started unraveling 2 weeks before Christmas. That Saturday evening, Lily was on the floor playing with her favorite doll while I watched from the couch, exhausted but content. Life after divorce was simple, quiet, predictable. Then my phone buzzed. Mom, her voice was unusually cheerful, too cheerful. Rose, she said sweetly, this year you and Lily should come home for Christmas dinner. It's been so long. I miss my granddaughter. I hesitated. It had been nearly 2 years since I brought Lily there, not because I was busy, but because I never felt welcome. Still, Lily deserved grandparents. All right, I said quietly, we'll come. Mom sounded relieved. She chatted about food, decorations. Then her tone shifted. Oh, one more thing, she added carefully. Your brother Brandon has a startup idea. He needs some capital. Since you're doing well, maybe you could help. I closed my eyes. How much? I asked. She paused. 200,000. The number hit me like ice water. That was nearly everything I had saved for Lily's future. I need time to think, I said slowly. Mom sighed, disappointed. Remember, Brandon just graduated. He has nothing. After the call ended, I watched Lily laughing on the floor and felt that familiar weight settle into my chest. Brandon is 8 years younger than me. The miracle baby. The prince. I was always told to give way, to sacrifice, to be responsible. When I was 15, I saved all summer for a bike. Brandon broke it. He's younger, they said. When I got into college, I worked 3 jobs. They saved money for Brandon. And now he wanted 200,000, like it was nothing. 2 days later, Brandon called me himself. I heard you're considering investing, he said confidently. He talked for 20 minutes about luxury coffee shops, branding, social media. When he finished, I asked calmly, do you have experience? No, but I believe in myself. And if it fails? His tone sharpened. Why are you thinking about failure? Don't you believe in me? I believe in protecting my daughter, I replied. I can't risk everything. He exploded. You're rich and still stingy. Mom and Dad raised you. I felt something snap. I can't lend you the money, I said firmly. Silence. Then he hissed, you'll regret this. He hung up. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, his words echoing in my head. I didn't understand what he meant. Not yet. I didn't sleep much after Brandon's call. His voice kept replaying in my head, sharp, entitled, almost gleeful when he said I'd regret it. Like he already knew something I didn't. Like the whole family had already agreed on a punishment. The next morning, while Lily ate cereal at the kitchen counter, swinging her legs and humming to herself, I tried to act normal. I smiled, poured her orange juice, asked about school. But inside, my chest felt tight, because I knew my family's pattern. When they didn't get what they wanted from me, they didn't accept no. They made me pay for it. And the worst part was, some part of me still wanted to believe this Christmas might be different. I wanted Lily to have grandparents. I wanted to walk into that house and feel like I belonged, even if only for one evening. But my life had taught me something I hated admitting. In my parents' home, love was never unconditional. It was a transaction. To understand why the $200,000 request didn't just feel insulting, it felt like the final knife twist. I need to tell you what my life looked like leading up to that moment. Because Brandon wasn't asking for money once. He was asking as someone who had been handed everything his entire life. And I had been the one financing the illusion. When I was 22, I graduated with an electrical engineering degree. Most of my classmates went straight to big firms, stable paychecks, shiny job titles, office buildings that smelled like fresh carpet and coffee. I could have done that too. But Colorado was changing. Solar was rising. I saw roofs everywhere and thought, that's the future. I told my parents I was going to start my own solar company. My father didn't even pretend to hide his disgust. "You went to college for 4 years," he said, voice thick with disappointment. "Just to climb roofs like a laborer?" My mother looked like she was watching me walk toward a cliff. "Rose, please," she begged. "Apply to a company. Get stability. Starting a business is risky." Risky. That word burned in my ears. Because nobody ever called Brandon risky. When he wanted something, it was ambition. When I wanted something, it was reckless. Still, I did it anyway. At 23, I founded Rocky Mountain Solar with a small bank loan and the scraps I'd saved from working part-time in college. In the beginning, I was everything. The owner, the salesperson, the installer, the one answering calls at midnight and crawling into attic spaces that smelled like insulation and old mouse droppings. There were weeks my bank account dipped so low I had to decide between groceries and gas. And when I called my parents, exhausted and scared, they didn't ask how I was. They asked when I was going to get a real job. By year 3, I started breaking even. By year 5, I had enough steady clients to hire a crew. By year 8, my company had over 20 employees and a reputation strong enough that people waited weeks just to get scheduled. I built all of it myself. No family help. No safety net. And still, I was never treated like someone who'd achieved anything. Just someone who got lucky climbing roofs. But here's the part that makes me feel sick to admit. Even while my parents belittled my work, I kept sending them money. Because I thought that was what a good daughter did. Because I thought if I kept showing up, kept giving, kept sacrificing, one day they'd finally see me. So after Brandon threatened me, I opened my banking app. I didn't do it dramatically. I didn't slam my laptop shut or cry into a glass of wine. I did it quietly, like someone finally accepting the truth. I scrolled through 8 years of transfers. And every time I saw another payment, my stomach tightened. It was like watching a slow-motion theft. Only I'd been the one holding the door open. When I was 26, my mom called in tears. "Your father needs knee surgery," she said. "Insurance won't cover everything." I didn't ask for proof. I didn't ask how much they'd saved. I just sent $15,000. When I was 27, Brandon started college. Mom called again. "Tuition is expensive," she said. "Could you help a little?" A little turned into $10,000 a year. 4 years straight, $40,000. While I worked 12-hour days and came home to a toddler who fell asleep waiting for me. When I was 29, Dad decided the roof needed replacing. I sent $20,000 in. When I was 31, Brandon needed a car for work. I sent $25,000. And then there were all the small ones. Medicine money, repairs, rent help, holiday gifts that didn't feel like gifts because they were expected. The constant drip, drip, drip of obligation until it became a flood. I opened my message history too. And that's when I felt something cold slide into my spine. Because the texts weren't grateful. They weren't loving. They weren't even polite. They were commands. "Send me $500 today. Brandon needs help again. Don't forget your responsibility." Responsibility. That word. Always that word. When I totaled everything, my hands went still. 123 thumb. I stared at it for a long time. That number wasn't just money. It was nights I skipped sleep to finish proposals. It was weekends Lily begged me to stay home and I couldn't. It was me choosing everyone else over myself, over and over, because I thought love required payment. And in return, no thank you, no appreciation, no recognition. Not once did my parents ask if I was okay. Not once did Brandon say, "I'll pay you back." They treated it like air, like it was simply there for them to breathe. That night, I wrote all the amounts down on a sheet of paper. Dates, numbers, reasons. Then I folded it and slipped it into my wallet. Not for them. For me. A reminder that if I went back into that house and got pressured again, I wouldn't doubt my own memory. I wouldn't let them rewrite history like they always did. Because my family had a special talent. They could drain you dry. And still call you selfish when you stopped bleeding. 2 weeks later, it was Christmas Day. I loaded Lily into the car, her teddy bear tucked under her arm, her cheeks pink with excitement. "Mommy," she said, bouncing in her seat, "I can't wait to see Grandpa and Grandma." My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Me too, sweetheart," I lied softly. The drive was nearly 2 hours. The whole way, Lily chattered about dessert and presents, and whether Grandpa would still have those little candy canes he used to keep in a bowl. And the whole way, my mind kept whispering, "Something is coming." Brandon didn't make that threat for nothing. When we turned into my parents' driveway, I froze. There were more cars than I expected, not just my parents' and Brandon's. 3 unfamiliar vehicles, clean, expensive. the kind that looked like they belonged to people who wore watches worth more than my first year's rent. Lily unbuckled herself, already reaching for the door. "Mommy, hurry!" I forced my face into a smile and lifted her out. My mother opened the front door almost immediately, like she'd been waiting. "There's my granddaughter," she squealed, pulling Lily into a hug. "Look how big you've gotten." Lily giggled and hugged her back. For a second, watching them, my heart did something stupid. It softened. Then my mother looked at me and didn't hug me. She just nodded, quick and tight, like I was a delivery person dropping off a package. "Come in," she said. "Everyone's waiting." That was when I knew. This wasn't a Christmas dinner. It was a setup, and my daughter and I had walked right into it. The moment I stepped into my parents' house, I felt it. That invisible pressure in the air, the kind that makes your shoulders tense before you even know why. The living room was louder than I expected, too loud for a family gathering. Voices overlapped. Laughter sounded forced, polished, performative. Dad was sitting on the sofa, leaning forward slightly, talking animatedly with a middle-aged man in a tailored suit. His posture was different than usual, straighter, prouder, the way he only ever looked when he thought he was impressing someone important. Nearby, Brandon stood in a crisp blazer I'd never seen before, gesturing confidently as he spoke to two young women. They nodded along, smiling politely, wine glasses in hand. When Brandon noticed me, his eyes flicked over for half a second. No greeting, no nod, just a quick glance, and then he turned away, like I wasn't worth acknowledging. I tightened my grip on Lily's hand. "Mommy," she whispered, confused. "Why is Uncle Brandon dressed like that?" I forced a small smile. "He's just playing business today." The man on the sofa stood up and extended his hand toward me. "Ah, you must be Rose," he said warmly. "I'm Mr. Henderson." My father beamed. "He owns a real estate company, a very successful one." I shook his hand politely. "The ladies here are Brandon's partners," Dad added, as if announcing royalty. I nodded to them. They smiled briefly. I could already tell something was off. No one asked how my drive was. No one asked how Lily was doing in school. No one asked how my business was. I wasn't the guest. I was the background. Around 6 o'clock, Mom announced dinner. The table was beautiful. I'll give her that. Candles, flowers, a perfectly roasted turkey. Everything laid out like a magazine spread. A dinner meant to impress. As everyone took their seats, I guided Lily toward two empty chairs near the end of the table. She climbed up happily, swinging her legs, already eyeing the mashed potatoes. I pulled out her chair. That was when my father's voice cut through the room. "Hold on." The word cracked like a whip. I froze. Dad stood up slowly and walked toward us. His steps were measured, deliberate. He stopped in front of Lily and looked down at her, not with warmth, not with affection, with calculation. "You can go eat in the car," he said coldly. "There's no place for you here." For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. The room went dead silent. Lily tilted her head up, her eyes wide, confusion spreading across her face. "Grandpa?" she asked softly. "What did I do?" Her little fingers tightened around mine. My ears started ringing. "What did you just say?" I asked, my voice trembling despite everything I did to steady it. Dad didn't even look at me. "I said the child can eat in the car. We have important guests tonight. Children make noise. They distract." I looked at my mother. She didn't meet my eyes. She stared down at her plate, hands folded tightly in her lap, as if she could disappear into the tablecloth. My heart sank. Then I looked at Brandon. He was smiling. Not a big grin, not an obvious one. Just a small, satisfied smirk. The kind you give when you know you've won. Lily's lips began to tremble. "Mommy," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Why doesn't Grandpa want me?" That was it. Something inside me snapped. "You apologize to my daughter. Right now," I said, each word heavy with restraint. Dad crossed his arms and finally looked at me, his eyes sharp and unyielding. "I have nothing to apologize for," he said. "This is my house. I decide who sits at my table." Then he leaned in slightly, lowering his voice, but not enough. "If you had agreed to lend Brandon the $200,000, he continued calmly, "you and your daughter would have a place here." The world tilted. I stared at him in disbelief. You're punishing my child," I said slowly, "because I didn't give Brandon money?" Dad shrugged. Actions have consequences. I don't remember stepping forward. I only remember my hand gripping his collar, pulling him toward me before I could stop myself. "You're kicking my 6-year-old out to eat in the car over money?" I shouted. "She's a child." Gasps filled the room. "Apologize," I screamed, my voice breaking. "Apologize to her." "Rose," my mother shrieked. "Stop!" Mr. Henderson and these others stood abruptly, horror written all over their faces. Rose, Mom cried, tears streaming now. If you hit your father, you'll regret it forever. My fists were clenched so tight my nails bit into my palms. I was shaking. Then I heard Lily sob. I turned my head. My daughter was crying silently, her body trembling, her eyes filled with fear, not of her grandfather, of me. That image hit harder than anything my father could have said. I let go. Not because I forgave him, not because I backed down, but because my daughter could not watch her mother become something she'd never feel safe with. I dropped to my knees and wrapped Lily in my arms. It's okay, I whispered. I've got you. Mommy's here. I'm scared, she cried into my neck. I stood up slowly, holding her close, and faced the table. You want to know why I didn't lend Brandon $200,000? I said, my voice cold and steady now. No one spoke. Because over the last 8 years, I continued, I've already given this family over $123,000. Silence. I reached into my wallet and pulled out the folded paper. I paid for Dad's surgery, Brandon's college, his car, your home repairs, your emergencies, your just this once moments. I read out every number, every date. With every amount, faces drained of color. And this, I said, locking eyes with my father, is how you repay me? This is how you treat your granddaughter? He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Mom finally spoke, her voice weak. Rose, you're misunderstanding. Misunderstanding what? I cut in. That you tried to humiliate my daughter in front of strangers to punish me? I turned to Brandon. His face was pale now. You think you deserve $200,000, I said quietly. You've never earned a single dollar on your own. You live off everyone else and call it ambition. Rose, he tried. Don't, I snapped. I'm not done. I turned to Mr. Henderson and the others. I'm sorry you had to witness this, I said calmly, but you should know exactly what kind of family you're dealing with. The air was suffocating. Mr. Henderson adjusted his jacket and stood. I think today's meeting ends here, he said coldly. I won't invest in someone who doesn't even know how to respect his own family. Please, Brandon stammered. Mr. Henderson was already walking away. The two women followed. One of them shook her head at Brandon before leaving. In minutes, the house was empty. Except for us. Mom collapsed into her chair, sobbing. Dad stood rigid, face red with rage and shame. Brandon stared at me like I'd destroyed his life. Are you satisfied now? He screamed. You ruined everything. I looked straight at him. No, I said calmly. You ruined this yourselves the moment you targeted my child. Lily clung to me, her body still shaking. Let's go, I whispered to her. At the door, my father laughed bitterly. You think you can demand money back from your own parents, Varej, he sneered. You're the daughter. You have a duty. I turned. Duty? I asked quietly. The same duty that lets you tell my child to eat in the car on Christmas? I smiled, empty and final. I have no duties to people who hurt my daughter. And I walked out, never looking back. The drive home felt longer than it ever had. Lily sat quietly in the back seat, her small arms wrapped tightly around her teddy bear. No humming. No questions about dessert. Just silence. That silence hurt more than crying. I kept glancing at her through the rearview mirror, my chest tightening every time I saw her red, swollen eyes staring out the window. About halfway home, she spoke. Her voice was barely louder than a whisper. Mommy! Yes, sweetheart, I answered immediately. Why does Grandpa hate me? The question hit me like a knife, straight through the heart. I had to pull over. I couldn't drive with tears blurring my vision. Couldn't pretend this was just another adult problem she wouldn't notice. I parked on the side of the road and turned around in my seat. Oh, Lily, my voice cracked. Grandpa doesn't hate you. But he told me to go eat in the car, she said softly. He didn't want me there. I swallowed hard, searching for words that wouldn't break her. Sometimes, I said carefully, adults say very hurtful things when they're angry or when they don't get what they want. But that doesn't mean you did anything wrong. You didn't. Not at all. She looked at me, her eyes shining with tears. Do you still love me? That did it. I unbuckled my seatbelt, reached back and pulled her into my arms. Oh, baby, I sobbed, holding her tight. I love you more than anything in this world. More than anyone. Always. Nothing will ever change that. She wrapped her arms around my neck and cried, not in fear this time, but in relief. I love you too, Mommy. I stayed there on the side of the road until her breathing slowed, until the shaking stopped. And right there, with her tears soaking into my coat, I made a promise to myself. No one, no parent, no sibling, no blood relative would ever be allowed to hurt my daughter again. Not ever. The next morning, after I dropped Lily off at school, I didn't go into the office. Instead, I sat in my car and made a call I had avoided for years. Kevin, I said when he answered, I need your help. Kevin was an old college friend, a civil litigation attorney, the kind of man who spoke calmly but didn't miss details. I told him everything: the money, the years, the Christmas dinner, what my father said to Lily. There was a long pause on the line. "Rose," Kevin said finally, "are you sure you want to do this? Suing your own parents? This is a point of no return." "I'm sure," I replied without hesitation. "This isn't about money. It's about what they did to my child." "All right," he said. "Send me everything you have: bank statements, messages, any proof." I spent the rest of the morning gathering documents: screenshots of texts, transfer receipts, notes with dates and amounts. When I finished, I stared at the final number on my screen: 123,000. Seeing it typed out made my stomach churn. That afternoon, Kevin sent an official demand letter to my parents' address. 60 days. Pay everything back. 3 days later, my phone started ringing. I didn't answer the first call. Or the second. By the third, I recognized the number. "Mom," I answered. She was crying before I even said hello. "Rose," she sobbed. "How could you do this? You're tearing this family apart." I kept my voice steady. "Mom, you didn't say a word when Dad told Lily to eat in the car." Silence. "You already chose a side," I continued. "I'm just responding to it." She hung up. Then Dad called. He didn't cry. He screamed. "You ungrateful girl! God will punish you for this." "You have 60 days," I replied calmly. "After that, we'll see each other in court." Brandon called last. His voice was low, threatening. "You ruined my career," he said. "I'll make you pay for this." I laughed softly. "You've never had a career, Brandon," I said. "You've just lived off other people." Then I blocked all 3 of them. For the first time in my life, I felt light. 2 weeks later, Kevin called. "They want mediation," he said. I agreed. Not because I wanted peace, but because I wanted to look them in the eyes one last time. The mediation meeting was scheduled for a Friday afternoon. Kevin's office was quiet, almost sterile. White walls, glass table, the faint hum of an air conditioner. The kind of place where emotions felt out of place, yet somehow unavoidable. When I walked in, my parents were already there. Dad sat stiffly in his chair, jaw clenched, eyes burning with resentment. Mom sat beside him, shoulders slumped, hands folded so tightly in her lap, her knuckles were white. She didn't look up when I entered. Brandon wasn't there. That didn't surprise me. He never showed up when things got real. Their lawyer began with polite formalities, his voice smooth and practiced. "My clients would like to propose a settlement," he said. "They are willing to repay 40% of the amount over the next 2 years." I didn't even look at Kevin before I shook my head. "No." The lawyer blinked. "Excuse me?" "I want the full amount," I said evenly, "within 60 days, as stated in the demand letter." Dad slammed his hand on the table. "You're demanding over $100,000? He shouted. "Do you think your parents are made of money?" I leaned forward and met his eyes. "Do you think I'm a money machine?" I asked calmly. "For 8 years, I sent you money nonstop, and in return, you told my daughter to eat in the car." Mom finally looked up then. "Rose," her voice trembled, "your father was wrong, but you can't—" "Do you know what Lily asked me that night?" I interrupted, my voice steady but sharp. "She asked why her grandfather hated her. A 6-year-old had to ask that." Mom broke down, covering her face with her hands. The room fell silent. "I'm not here because I need the money," I continued. "I'm here because this is the only way you'll understand that actions have consequences. You can't take from me for years and then humiliate my child when I say no." After nearly 2 hours of tense negotiation, it was over. They agreed. The full amount, $123,400, to be paid within 90 days. They would have to sell part of their land to do it. Brandon would be legally obligated to repay his portion as well. When the agreement was placed in front of us, Dad stared at me with bitterness. "Are you satisfied now?" he asked. "You're stripping your parents of everything." I signed without hesitation. "I'm not stripping anything," I said quietly. "I'm taking back what belongs to me." Mom's voice was barely audible. "After this, do you still consider us your parents?" I paused. Once that question would have destroyed me. Now it just felt heavy. "I used to," I answered honestly. "But family doesn't treat each other the way you treated Lily. Once the money is paid, we're done. No more contact." I stood up and walked out. I didn't look back. Part 6. A quiet life, a stronger heart. 6 months later, my life was quiet again. Peaceful. The money was paid in full. My parents sold the land they'd held onto for years. Brandon took out loans to cover his share. I didn't ask for details. I didn't care. Once the last payment cleared, I kept my word. I changed my number, blocked every account, returned letters unopened. Lily slowly forgot. She stopped asking about Grandma's house. She stopped mentioning Grandpa's candy bowl. Sometimes, when other kids talked about their grandparents, she'd go quiet for a moment, then smile again and run off to play. One day I'll explain everything to her. But not yet. Right now, she's safe, she's happy, that's enough. My business continues to grow. I invested the recovered money into a savings fund for Lily's future, college, travel, whatever life she chooses. Our life is simple now. No guilt, no fear, no phone calls demanding payment disguised as love. And through everything, I've learned something that changed me forever. No one has the right to mistreat you just because they're family. For years, I gave without expecting anything back. I thought love meant endurance. That sacrifice would eventually earn respect. It never did. The moment they went after my daughter, that was the line. If you're listening to this and you're in a similar situation, hear me. Set boundaries, protect your children, and never let anyone convince you that abuse is a family obligation. Because real family doesn't ask you to bleed to prove your worth. And love should never come at the cost of your child's tears.